Welcome back, Global Alliance for Banking on Values community. One of the things that has been a signature of the Global Alliance has been the learning journeys that we've held each year at every annual meeting. And great care has been taken to make sure that we get a chance to really get into and understand the business models and the thinking and the passion that the clients and the customers of values-based banks and members really bring. I am delighted this afternoon from where I'm sitting to introduce the learning journey. It's called A Fresh Start, Working Together to Create a More Equitable Future. And we'll begin, and then we're going to have a great fireside chat together with Nicole Cooley, Rick Beeson, hosted by our CEO from Sunrise Banks, David Riley.
Hi folks, welcome to the GABV 2021 annual meeting. I'm Eric Gatormson. I'm a commercial lender at Sunrise Banks, and we're proud to be hosting this year's event. It's so exciting to be with you these couple of days to share new ideas and learn from one another. So again, welcome. I'll be guiding you through our learning journeys. These are short videos that feature Sunrise customers that are relevant to our time together. Customers like a zero waste market in Minneapolis, and a green energy provider in the Twin Cities suburbs, and a local restaurateur who believes in social justice just as much as he does great food. And throughout these learning journeys, I'll be your virtual tour guide. Better yet, your virtual bus driver. The first learning journey stop is Sunrise Banks. Before we leave the station, I want to fill you in on who we are at Sunrise and what we stand for. Sunrise Banks is headquartered in St. Paul, Minnesota. We have about 250 employees and just over 1.4 billion in assets. We serve people and businesses in the Twin Cities urban core. We're a community development financial institution, or CDFI. A CDFI means that at least 60% of our loan portfolio is devoted to low to moderate income areas. We also partner with several fintechs to provide better access to credit and financial products to underbanked members of communities across the US. In addition, we're a certified B Corporation and a public benefit corporation. Our mission is to be the most innovative bank empowering financial wellness. At Sunrise, we really are more than just a bank. We're a social enterprise intent on helping others. And that's what keeps us working every day. It's knowing that our work is making a difference. And here's some data. Sunrise's partnership with Self has helped over 95,000 individuals build their credit. Gusto originated 32,640 loans, which provides an alternative to payday lending and allows employees to get paid immediately for their work. With TrueConnect, 2,500 employers employing more than 104,000 employees have access to another alternative to payday lending. Sunrise also received $243 million in new market tax credit allocation in 5 separate awards to date, helping spark economic development in low to moderate income neighborhoods across the Twin Cities. We also helped 153 people purchase new homes in 2019, and 50% of those families went through our open door mortgage program, which helps clients with individual taxpayer identification numbers, or ITINs, reach their dreams of home ownership. We talked with a couple of longtime Sunrise employees to see what they had to say. Dave, tell us what you do at Sunrise and how long you've worked here.
So I've been at Sunrise for over 10 years now. Currently, I work with you on the west side of the Twin Cities, managing a commercial loan team. We help small business customers with all their banking needs.
What do you like about working at Sunrise?
We're kind of taught here at Sunrise, it kind of runs in our blood, that we don't just say no if something doesn't look right to us. You know, we ask a lot of questions and we investigate. We try to really understand where our customer or prospective customer is coming from. And I just think that, you know, that makes such a big difference in the experience that Sunrise Bank's customers have. I think, so frequently we hear from our customers that, or prospects usually, they walk into a big bank or a lot of other banks and it's just a dead end. It's a really negative experience.
Yeah.
And I think the experience that we provide for them is, even if we can't help them, they walk away feeling like it was worthwhile to meet us. Maybe they're just one step closer, to getting where they have to go, even if we can't help them right now.
Why is values-based banking important to you?
Good financial tools are so critical to creating financial wellness, and it's so counterproductive that there's so much distrust within the financial industry. Like a lot of our underserved clients almost just kind of try to stay away from it, which, can just make things harder. The fact that we're building a lot of trust, that we're not just basing all of our business decisions on financial ramifications, we're considering impacts as part of our decision-making process. I just think that just helps build goodwill with our customers and hopefully really helps them out in the end.
Totally.
And then one other thing, Eric.
Yeah, please.
We talk about this a lot, but we get to work with great people.
Yeah.
And I just think, our values-based approach has a lot to do with that. We attract really good people. They stick around. We're all very energized in helping our customers and doing the right thing for the bank. So I just think it's a really fun group of people to work with.
So Dave, thinking about values-based banking, what are some of the other opportunities you've had to engage in your community?
A really life-changing thing for me that the door was open through Sunrise Banks is I've been a board member for a nonprofit called Marnita's Table for about the last 10 years. I'm currently the board treasurer, bearing witness to the work that they do and being a very small part of its amazing success has been an incredible experience.
Yeah. Now we're going to talk to Denise. Denise, tell us what you do at Sunrise and how long you've worked here.
Hi, Eric. I'm Denise Toussaint. I've been at Sunrise for 12 years. I just celebrated an anniversary this month. And I work in relationship banking, which is retail banking. I'm a regional market manager, and I help oversee the retail side, so bankers, tellers, branch managers.
What do you like about working at Sunrise?
I love the teamwork. I love that when we have a project we have to tackle, that everyone just joins forces and we tackle it. For example, like the PPP application process, there's people from all different departments working together, trying to get everything done and get a big project accomplished. I just really love the teamwork here.
Awesome. Why is values-based banking important?
I feel it's important because it's something that really ties into the community banking industry. It helps us to recognize our community and the diverse communities, the diverse people and businesses that we service and help. It just really matters. It kind of balances everything else out in the world.
Denise, I know that you are a Sunny Award winner. Can you speak a little bit to that and tell us what that means?
I was the Sunny Award winner in 2020. Wow, that was incredible. What does that mean? It really makes me feel honored and special. It was, even though it was remote, it was probably one of the proudest moments of my life. Wow, my hard work was recognized, that people recognized me. It was just very special and very touching. It was almost like I won an Academy Award or something. So yes, it was a beautiful honor.
We're really proud of what we do and so thankful for all the support the GABV and its member banks have provided over the years. Our work wouldn't be possible without all of them, so thank you. And with that, we're off to our next stop, Hiawatha Academies in Minneapolis. See you there.
My name is Nicole Cooley, and I am the founding principal of Hiawatha Collegiate High School.
My name is Danny Smith, and I am the founding alumni coordinator here at Hiawatha Collegiate High School.
Hiawatha Academies is located in South Minneapolis, and we serve students from around the metro area and even a little bit beyond that. If you added all them up, we're probably close to 2,000, if not over that. At this point, we've got 2 elementaries, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school. And our network is actually in the process of unifying to have a more aligned approach to be able to have a K-8 and then a high school. So sort of bring these together to support all of our kids in having an aligned Hiawatha experience throughout their K-12 years. The demographics are relatively similar, K-12, in terms of racial makeup. A little more than 80% of students identify as Latinx. We've got smaller and growing populations of Black, East African populations as well. The majority of students come from families of low-income background, and the vast majority identify as first-generation college students. Our mission is ingrained in who we are. It's to empower all of our scholars with the knowledge, character, and leadership skills to graduate from college and to serve the common good.
What makes Hiawatha Academies succeed where other charters haven't is our to and through vision at Hiawatha. What students choose to do after they leave our doors is solely dependent on them. But when they leave our school, we make sure that they never leave our pack. And that's honestly indicated in our alumni coordinator team. We created support with people that already had an impactful relationship to best assist our alumni after high school. And in turn, we are able to get truly authentic stories from our alumni, and that shares the impact of our program. It shares the impact whenever they join the Hiawatha Academies, and we're able to be very important and intricate part of their lives.
Why have we been successful at Hiawatha Academies? I think the people who we've hired are committed to kids, and I think seeing your job as an educator to be someone to build relationship with students and families creates a trust that is necessary for kids to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel loved in order to thrive. Teachers do a lot, and we need teachers. We need to respect teachers. We need to work with teachers. I think that family-school collaboration is so key. So I think about how challenging this year has been, but the opportunity for us to learn some really important lessons in it that hopefully will change the way that systems operate, that schools operate, that relationships are built between families and schools in order to serve students better. Our teachers at the beginning of the year give their phone numbers, give their email addresses. They might give a WhatsApp connection to their students, to their families, in order to show students and families we don't believe school is something that is 9 to 3. We believe school is a commitment to a family and a family's commitment to the school, and so we want to make sure that students have that access. I think accessibility demonstrates a commitment to connection and to relationship. You could say, here's my phone number, and have zero desire for a connection in that, but it is really I am committing to you, you are committing to me, I work for you, you work for me. It requires that kind of relationship. I know at our school, our advisors have parents' numbers, on speed dial. Our kids have advisors' numbers and teachers' numbers. I think about even during the pandemic, I was talking with an advisor at my school who met up with one of his advisees for a walk by the creek because we're not in person at this time, but the advisee was going through, a challenging time in deciding what school to go to for college for next year. Whether it's accessibility to person, accessibility to phone, accessibility to email, just says I will show up for you. You deserve it. So I will show up for you. And so that I think is an example of our commitment.
It's great to hear from the folks at Hiawatha Academies. They're doing amazing work. I want to mention a couple of things pertaining to education in Minnesota. Minnesota ranks as one of the most educated states based on the number of residents with college degrees. It is also the first state in the country to adopt charter school legislation. Notwithstanding these achievements, Minnesota still has a long way to go towards education equity. A report from the Minneapolis Federal Reserve says our state has some of the worst achievement gaps in the nation. The Fed found, for example, that 65% of white students are proficient in reading within the 4th grade, while only 31% of Black students are proficient in reading within the same grade. Schools like Hiawatha Academies give us hope in Minnesota for a more meaningful path towards education equity. So big thank you to Hiawatha for all they do. Now we're gonna head to our next stop, East 38th Street and Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis. This is where George Floyd died after being apprehended by Minneapolis police last May. Now known as George Floyd Square, the intersection was transformed into a memorial after Mr. Floyd's death and has been visited by people from all over the world to pay their respects. The intersection helps us remember Mr. Floyd. At the same time, it's a stark reminder of the tragedy our cities faced and the work we still need to do to eradicate systemic racism. Mr. Floyd's death sparked protests around Minneapolis and St. Paul. Buildings were burned and stores were looted. Lake Street, one of Minneapolis's main arterials, was reduced to rubble after many nights of protests. Some businesses remain boarded up. The video we're about to show you takes you to South Minneapolis and other nearby locations in the aftermath of Mr. Floyd's death.
When we talk about equity, I don't think that we can say that there's just one way to do equity. It has to impact every single aspect of our cultures and communities.
We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. We are unstoppable.
I think when we can find leadership that is not based on programs and activities that they have created in the past, but that is grounded on principles of what is institutionally anti-racist, what is fundamentally racial equity, what does it mean to pursue social justice in our research, our teaching, and our service engagement. That has to permeate and start at the leadership level.
He can breathe. Can't you see?
It's not just stopping the bad practice. It's how do we make somebody whole after generations of these bad things have happened?
If not now, when are we going to really make this a better place, not just for people of color, but we have to liberate the entire population. We have to liberate everybody to where we can also have that economic liberation where we can all continue to grow.
This takes me back to last spring and all the emotions I was feeling at that time. Sunrise Banks released a statement after Mr. Floyd's death, and I want to read some of that to you. We're grieving the loss of George Floyd, and our hearts are breaking for his family and our community, just as we grieve the senseless killings of Philando Castile, Jamar Clark, and so many others. Our hope is that real, lasting change will come out of this unspeakable tragedy, and we will emerge as a more tolerant and just society. The last few days have been a whirlwind of emotion, confusion, fear, and grief as we saw a senseless murder happen before our eyes and our community painfully suffering each day. We go on to say, there's no excuse for racism of any kind, period. Sunrise Banks believes every person on this planet is important and that kindness and love always wins. We stand for the equitable and just treatment of all people, no matter their heritage or background. We support those who respectfully and peacefully protest inequality and stand in solidarity with anyone attempting to end systemic prejudice and bigotry. From here, I'm going to drop you off at a fireside chat with some of the folks involved in the videos you've just seen. It's been great to spend some time with you. See you again soon.
Wow. So ending with the video of George Floyd brings back so many memories and emotions, as well as Eric Thompson had mentioned. Nicole and Rick, welcome. I know it's a heavy transition. I was told by a very prominent community leader that educational justice is social justice. And so today, Nicole, between you and Hiawatha Academy, we hope to have a great discussion there. And Rick, in regards to the University of Minnesota and your involvement as a regent there, we're going to talk about educational justice, but also talk about a lot of events, not only surrounding George Floyd, but COVID and digital and community. And so we got a lot of topics to cover. But I would love to encourage the audience as well. Please use the chat and ask questions. You know, one of the beautiful things about a learning journey is to be able to really engage with the people who are doing the work on the street and in making that impact happen. And so that's where the magic happens. So Nicole, I'd love to just start with you. How did you become the founding principal of Hiawatha Academy?
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. I started as a teacher in St. Louis through a program called Teach for America. My mother was a teacher, and so I probably knew I was going to be a teacher for forever, though I had a denial phase, and was a teacher in St. Louis, in Chicago, but neither of those places were home. Coming back to Minnesota was important to me because this is a place that feels like home, but it's a place that needs a lot of love, especially when it comes to educational equity. And so I found Hiawatha Academies in 2013, joined the team, and I'm incredibly happy to be here. There's a lot of work to be done.
Fantastic. And maybe just to reiterate a little bit what Eric had mentioned in Minnesota, a particular issue that we face. Well, we have, I'll call it very prominent or high educational success. We have a gap. We have a gap between white and Caucasian and people of color in terms of graduation rates, in terms of reading capabilities. And that is the gap, that is the issue, that is the heavy, if you will, that we want to address, and that Hiawatha Academy is really squarely in the middle of. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yes. Minnesota has the largest achievement gap of any state in the country. I think, that term has been given a few different names, from achievement gap to opportunity gap to belief gap. And I think all of them are really important to name because I think they're all true.
Very good. Thank you. And Rick, I'm going to shift over to you. So Rick, we have a long history together. So people may not know, but Rick, how long have you been at Sunrise?
Well, good afternoon, Dave, and hey, Nicole. Well, this May I'll have been with the bank 33 years.
33 years.
Yes.
So, Rick, I could go through your bio, but it would take us the entire time. And so you have been a president of a bank here. You are currently, you head up our community and economic, or our government relations, as well as our business development side. I phrase Rick as he knows everybody in St. Paul and Minneapolis. But Rick, I'd love to touch on, and you've been involved in so many different organizations, but I want to fast forward you right into your passion around education and that of being a regent, a board member, if you will, of the University of Minnesota. Can you just take us on a little journey as to how you got there? And also tell us a little about what we call the U of M. And I know there's a lot of U of M's around the country, but the University of Minnesota, give us the elevator pitch.
Well, glad to, David. I've always been a volunteer by nature, and I really appreciate the bank's willingness to let me work time during bank hours to follow these pursuits. I took on the more traditional sort of engagements with chambers of commerce and economic development organizations. That's a natural extension, of course, being a banker and financing projects and improving our great communities. And it wasn't until a number of years ago when I joined the board of a charter school. The bank got very involved in the charter school industry about 20 years ago. It exploded. And I was able to join the board of the School for Performing Artists. And really, at that time, started my interest in education. I felt, hey, you know, it's important providing housing. It's important to build jobs and to remove blight around all this economic development. But at the end of the day, I was really a late arriver to the need to focus on education. And that led me to run for the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. And that's been a life experience, certainly, for the last 12 years, overseeing the 8th largest university in the country. We're old, not very old by European standards, but we were founded in 1851. That's a long time ago for Minnesota and for the United States, and a land grant institution. So President Lincoln gave us, along with a number of other universities, land on which we could generate timber and mining income and support the operations of the university. And we run 5 campuses, a $4.5 billion budget, and it's a strong CEO model. So the president, who we hire and manage, is in charge of the far-flung enterprise that ranges from undergraduate to graduate to ag school to medical school and everything in between. Very decentralized, very entrepreneurial, very unwieldy. And so that 12 years ago was the beginning of my journey there, and I'm just wrapping up right now.
Well, thanks, Rick. And so now we've mentioned charter schools a couple of times in that term. And so let's just dive into that a little bit. Because Rick, you've been involved in Minnesota, is on the forefront. And Nicole, maybe you could just give us a little, what's the definition of a charter school? How is it different than a public and a private school?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I think that's an important question that a lot of people get confused about. Both charter and public schools are public and open to all. Most of the time they have the same exact goal, right? To do the best they can for kids and for families. The main difference is that a charter is run by a private board, whereas a district is run by the State Board of Education, allowing a charter a little bit more flexibility, whether that's with regards to program, whether that's with regards to staffing, and that flexibility can serve schools well.
Very good. And Nicole, so this is one of the things that sticks out to me, particularly as I watched the video, but I've seen the success of Hiawatha, and that is, it just seems like Hiawatha's mindset. There's abundance there. It's for the kids, it's a relationship, but it's almost that aspect of, listen, you're going to college. There's a lot of debate about this. This is the direction. That just seems different to me than your typical public school. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think to that piece of flexibility, being in a charter, the flexibility to hire people and make sure that you have people who have strong belief in children and can provide that narrative that they might not be hearing because of systems within our community, systems within our country, family experience to date. So when children join Hiawatha Academies in kindergarten or in 9th grade, we say, like, you are a scholar when you are in college. Like those narrative pieces are so important for building mindset for kids that they can and that they deserve the opportunity to choose to go to college if that's what they want to do. And we're finding that the majority of our kids do want to do that. And so let's open that door.
Absolutely. And so I just have to give you one bit of history. I used to work in South Central Los Angeles, and I ran into an African-American nun, and I never forget the line that she said to me, because she had that same abundant mindset of these kids, they're going to college no matter how much adversity they have. And her line to me was, Dave, pity isn't love. If I pitied them, all their circumstances would overcome them. But the fact is I love them, and the fact is they're going to college, and there isn't any other way. We're putting that mindset into place. So Rick, you've got Hiawatha doing everything they can to get kids to get to the University of Minnesota or a college or university of their choice. What is the university doing to help that those families, let's say of lower income means or first generation college students, what's the university's position there? What does it look like?
Well, we've got a major responsibility, of course, and we do suffer from a lack of diversity. School is more suburban, less urban, and less rural than we'd like to see it, although we've made progress. So what are we doing? What we found out, especially with big campuses, which are foreboding and intimidating, we're bringing young students on campus. We're demystifying that, and we're giving them tours that majority students would normally get with their parents. So we're making it a friendly place. We're breaking down the university. We know that when we get students on campus, that first month or two is critical to their success. So we're trying to get them to join. We're providing the structure. In fact, the good news is that we have stronger retention of students of color than they do Caucasian students from year 1 to year 2. The problem is from year 2 to 3 and 4, we drop off. So we're building on-campus housing for those students because we find that life gets in the way and move off campus. There's a loss of focus. So we're doing that. We're providing now free tuition for families under $50,000. And this is a mystery to most people, the sticker versus net price of education. And Nicole and her group do this too, about the visceral reaction. We can't afford college. Well, you can. It's not overwhelmingly expensive. And we have a lot of need-based scholarships, so that is, that is part of it. We have an American Indian University in our system, 35%. This is built around the government's really unfortunate chapter of having a boarding school. We've converted that into American Indian University in Western Minnesota, and it's really exciting to watch. Those students go free for tuition as well. So there's a lot we're doing, but there's a lot we can do. And having a college prep program like Nicole's and several others around the Twin Cities will really help increase the supply of kids who can handle a rigorous curriculum, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So I want to shift gears on you. I want to talk about community, but particularly in the wake of COVID. So a year ago, COVID hits and kids go home or they don't go to school. Nicole, talk to me. What did you do, but how do you keep the fabric together in which to build the mindset to keep kids going?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, because school isn't just about academics. It is about community and it is about culture. And I don't think, schools have ever seen a challenge like they have in COVID for those reasons, right? And so, to be honest, when this happened in March, we reeled, it was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And that time let us try some things, fail on some things, and plan for a stronger school year this year, right? And so this year we made sure tech would not be a barrier for students. All students have a computer, all students have a hotspot, because that was a barrier, right? We made sure that there was a little bit of a more flexible schedule to allow time for people to check in on kids, aside from their class time, an advisor calling home or an advisor, doing a home visit, socially distant. And now I'm at school right now. We've been able to invite 15% of our students in as a trial, to make sure that, the students who are most worried about, and we're not thinking about grades or academic preparedness, we're thinking about really sort of losing touch with community. Those are the students that we wanted to bring in so that they felt this connection.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And so you had said it, we had a little pre-meeting, and I just can't get the line out of my head. And I think the bankers on this call will appreciate this. And that is, your budget is a reflection of your values. And so how did you shift the budget to reflect the values in this particular case? I mean, you had to pay for hotspots and things of that nature. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Someone, I won't claim that line. Someone said that to me and it stuck with me as well. I mean, definitely there's been relief from the state and the federal government for sure. But in thinking about, as a charter school, we can choose to grow our fund balance, right? Or we can think about like, this is a moment of crisis and we're going to lose kids. Like the most important thing, we're going to lose kids if we don't form a connection and like strengthen that connection right now. We just prioritize that over anything else.
I have a quick question from the audience, and somebody asked, do charter schools typically have wait lists? And if so, what?
Yeah, our charter school does have a wait list. We've always had a wait list. We then do a lottery, right, to figure out who gets in. That's not always the case, right? And I think in Minneapolis public schools, it's easier to get into some schools than it is to get into others. I'd like to think that's a reflection of success that we've seen. Families want to come to a place that has a record of success.
Got it. Yep. Very good. And so I want to move. I just want to touch on community again, but I think from the lens of maybe security and safety in George Floyd. For both of you, maybe Rick, I'll start with you first. From a large university perspective, this event happens. What do you do? What does a school of the size of the University of Minnesota do in terms of a reaction to George Floyd and civil unrest?
Well, thanks, David. One of the first things the president announced was to hire a national consultant, look at our police department, our public safety issue. We're in the heart of Minneapolis. We're only several miles from where George Floyd died. And we hired this consultant with the idea that he would reach out to several hundred stakeholders. And the report came back a few weeks ago, and we were surprised. And the surprise was that we've had a police department that's had very few complaints, very few issues, very little use of force. But there's a basic distrust in part of the community around the fear of police force. And, and then there's another part that is fearing crime, the increase in crime or the perception of crime. So we're dealing with that issue head on, and it's really sort of mirrors into the race relations and about how we deal with each other on campus and the disparities and the social justice issues locally. Because as a university, we are a giant fishbowl, and we have to live our values and represent our values that in a way that will help the community at large. Got it.
And Nicole, how about you? I mean, the families you serve are right there.
Yeah, exactly. I think about the Cup Foods right there. We have students who work at that Cup Foods, families who live right around there. And our high school is actually just 2 blocks north of Lake Street. So given the fact that this happened during COVID when school wasn't in session, we actually repurposed our high school building to be a distribution site and use that site to collect a variety of goods that were open to anyone, not just students, but community members whose homes, had been broken into or who were in danger. And so we did sort of a grassroots approach, and that work isn't done. I think we've got to think about how do we make sure all students, but specifically our Black students, right, given the anti-Blackness that is core to what happened with George Floyd, make safe in our school community. So what we're doing right now is listening sessions with students, with families. What does this mean for once we return to school? How do we need to think about our policies? How do we need to think about our practices to make sure all of our students feel safe and seen and loved?
Yeah, and can I just ask, have all the students, are they accounted for? Or did, in events like this, people seem to just disappear and fall off the map because of whether it's families and work or security issues or economic ones?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. That was issue number one. Call all families, make sure they're safe, make sure that, if they need anything, we're listening. And so at Hiawatha, whether that was a homeroom teacher in, younger grade levels and advisors, it wasn't about like, what are we doing with math today? It was like, call these families and make sure that they're okay.
Yeah, it's such a traumatic event. And I live a mile away from 38th in Chicago, and so it hit home for me. I can only imagine if you were even closer and ingrained, and especially from a parent of a young family in that situation. Physical security is paramount, but then the mental and emotional toll. And maybe you could both just speak a little bit about that. I think everyone on this call over the past year, given COVID and quarantining, has been challenged with mental and emotional health. And so and Nicole, what comes to mind for you when you think of the mental and emotional health of the students at Hiawatha?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is priority number one right now. I'd mentioned, bringing in a subset of our students right now. And it's interesting because the staff who is here supporting them are support staff and social workers. The rate in Minnesota of number of students per social worker needed in a school is like abysmal. And I'm really proud that at our school, we've got 3, right? And so I'm sitting here, there's a window right there, and I keep seeing our social worker walk by with a different student. Right. And that personal sort of touch point of like, let's talk about the trauma of this year. Because if we don't address that, if we don't address the safety that students need to feel, nothing else is going to happen. And so we're reprioritizing, what does it mean to return to school? Because we can't just return and pretend nothing happened. We need to have a slow return that, skilled professionals can support students and staff in supporting the trauma of the past year.
Yeah, thank you. And Rick, how about you from the university's perspective? Boy, the mental and emotional health of students, what's on the mind of the university?
Well, universities can and should take the long view built on research and data. And one of the things I'm most excited about at the university that's happening is we're creating the Center for a Developing Brain. So if you think about brain development, which is 80% complete by the time a child is 6 years old, and the struggles that children have, neurological disorders, but also what I'm understanding from our doctors is there are toxic stressors that they receive and imagine what these children are bringing home and processing, and that's impeding the learning. So this center will bring our doctors along with our educational psychologists and our social workers together and create treatments and prevention activities for these kids. So it's all about the baby's brain and maximizing development really, really early.
Wow. And so obviously some of the speakers we had before, particularly Kate, who was the last one, I got this sense of, it's all connected. Whether you're a business and a school, it's all of our children and our community. And we feel this in the environment and how in the environment, the global environment and the planet, if you will, but the environments that we live in locally, it's all connected, and health is wealth. And we see that obviously, particularly within children and young adults in school. So Nicole, I'm going to give you, we just have a minute left, maybe close to the last word. When you think of a global community of values-based bankers in your school, any words of wisdom or any parting thoughts that you might just throw out to the group?
Yeah. When we spoke earlier, you said this is a group of bankers that's like taking a stance bankers, and that I wrote that down, that stuck with me. And I think about anyone who sees their work as like doing good for the community, where is there an opportunity to ally, right? To think about like, when we work together better, how is that better for more? And so, yeah, that's what
perfect. We're right at the hour. Rick, any last parting comments from you, from the university side, or your long, illustrious career?
Universities are sort of known, the goalposts for universities are the medical school and the football team. I love football, as David knows, but I've chosen the medical school and healthcare and the delivery around the state research, clinical, and teaching. So I'm very bullish around that, and love education. And Nicole, great work on your side. You're doing the heavy lifting.
You too.
So Nicole, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being with us today. Rick, thanks as always for all you do for the community. Folks, this brings our session to a close. I think the one takeaway I got today was really, whether you're a values-based banker or you're running a school or university, there's opportunity for partnership. There's opportunity for collaboration and for good across the spectrum. So we'll think about that in an abundant mindset going forward. Thanks to all, and that'll end our session for a break.